my fellow readers, it's Dark Symphony 777, and you can see my face again. Oh god, you can see my face again. Oh, I'm having a lot of fun. But it's time for another fan fiction review. As always, link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts on the story, and finally, this is my opinion. My opinion is not indicative of everyone in the world, so please respect that. So, the story I am reviewing this time is Little Dragon in a Strange New World by Zerujin. Sweden. Like, I don't know, I think I get Guardian for some reason. And this is a My Little Pony Spyro crossover because, God forbid, I have to do more ponies. I like Trixie. Come on, this story doesn't have Trixie, therefore it's automatically bad. Yeah, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Trixie not being here does not automatically mean the story is bad. Or is it? But let's actually get into the story. So, in order to understand this story, we have to understand where this story takes place in the timeline. Because I know Spyro, I've actually played Spyro. Problem is, I'm not familiar enough with the general storyline, because I think this one takes place in the kind of sort of reboot. Because I know there's two timelines. There's the original timeline, which is Spyro's 1, 2, 3, and I think the one for the GameCube. I think everything after that is technically like its own continuity. I think. I wish I was more familiar with like the general story of the entire franchise. But this one takes place after the one where they beat him out. Oh my god. Spyro games. I do not know. I wish I knew. Yeah. Which one? Which one is? No, not this one. Yeah, these three. I think this one takes place the Dawn of the Dragon. I believe this is here it is. Reboot. It's a reboot. And so it's kind of a reboot of the Spyro series, and it introduced Cinder, and it has a dragon by the name of Malfour. He's actually kind of the main antagonist in this story. But yeah, let's just actually get into the story. So the story actually starts not with Spyro, but with Celestia and Luna, and they're actually looking at the stars. Celestia sees something weird going on, specifically with the Drago constellation. And it's behaving weirdly. Luna doesn't notice anything at first because she's the one who does the who's the one doing the constellations, and therefore she's kind of in tune, but she doesn't notice anything. But Celestia's like, you don't see anything weird? It's like, maybe I'll look into it. And then they get a letter from Twilight saying that something weird going on, and they trust Twilight because Twilight is Twilight. And then we go to Avalar, where Spyro and Sparks, mainly Spyro, is anxious. He's restless, and he just wants to burn some energy. So him and Sparks, they take flight, and then in comes from a storm on both worlds, where a big storm comes up. Spyro and Sparks are swept up into the storm. They get separated, and they crash land into Equestria. Basically, they go into different areas. Sparks ends up with Fluttershy, because of course he does. I actually want to call this out. Every single crossover I've ever read so far, the person who crosses over into the world always seems to end up at Fluttershy's. I'm not saying this is bad, it's just something I've seen like a weird sense of regularity. It's always Fluttershy. I guess I guess it makes sense since Fluttershy lives near the Air Free Forest. Therefore, a lot of weird stuff happens. So, but it's just weird. I just want to see them meet up with other ponies first more. It's always Fluttershy. It's just me. But anyway, Sparks ends up with Fluttershy, but Spyro ends up at the. Had some peanut butter before recording. Spyro actually ends up at the Cloud. Oh my god, I forgot the Pegasus Cloudsdale or something. I'm having a brain fart on the name of that city. Basically, she ends up at the weather factory where they make the clouds. Spyro gets away, freaks everyone out because oh my god, it's a dragon. Gets chased down by Rainbow Dash. Spyro manages to get Rainbow Dash off her back for a little bit, and then they fight. Spyro uses the Earth magic to basically take out Rainbow Dash, but then he's completely knocked out by Applejack. And then Twilight finds out, and then we get this whole big adventure. It's like, you're a dragon. It's like, yes, I'm a dragon, but you're small. But you're small. Like, yes, I am very small. I'm very tiny. Why? Dragons are not supposed to be tiny. Well, if you're a baby, yeah, but you're not a baby. You don't look like a baby. You're not acting like a baby. Yes, I'm not a baby. I'm pretty much like a teenager. Spike. And so they kind of settle into this groove where Celestia and Luna pretty much immediately realize he's not from around here. And they actually get a big spell going up to actually get them in contact to Avalar, which I think is actually unique in a sense of a crossover, because not too many crossovers I read actually readily have both worlds, shown so easily accessed, because like, oh, they make the spell, they talk to people from the other world. It's like, all right, we're gonna get it back. We're going back. It's like usually it's some kind of cultural thing or some kind of difference. Like with the Spyro How to Train Your Dragon crossover, the main conflict for that was actually just getting Spyro and Cinder home.
What is a man? A miserable little pile.
I had a call. So where was I? Oh yeah, the main conflict of the How to Train Your Dragon and Spyro crossover, that was just Spyro getting home, but we don't see Spyro's world until like the very end, because that story takes place immediately at the end of the trilogy. Well, this one takes place sometime after the trilogy as a whole, and so you have both worlds like, oh yes, we'll get him back. Yes, it's like okay, and it's like yeah, they already have like a sense of, well, they're already working on getting it back, and they get it pretty fast. Like that's like the big thing. They get the ability to get it back pretty fast. However, there is some shenanigans that happens. Basically, in this version of Equestria, Equestria lives on the border of two other countries. One ruled by dragons, the other one's ruled by griffins that are constantly at war with each other, and they desperately wanted to try and encroach upon Equestria, but Celestia and Luna's like, no, you're not, and it's like, they're gods. Kill the other gods, and so they basically just fight each other and try and keep Equestria like not really involved, because they don't want to get angry Celestia after them. It's like, you're gonna go on the moon. All I did was burn down a house. That house had a pony in it. What are you gonna do? Solar flare. But they find out through their spy network, because they actually brokered a deal with Celestia, that they can let some of their people kind of fly and wander around in their airspace, as long as they're not causing problems, as long as they're mainly just using it to act as like a spy, kind of basically. As long as they don't cause problems to Equestria, they can both use the airspace specifically for basically just airspace as like a getaway to like to their home countries, or as a use like an extension of a sort of pseudo spy network or messaging thing. Point is, as long as they don't cause problems, Celestial let them fly. But they find out that Spyro's there, and both of them want Spyro for themselves. The Griffins think that the equestrians are working with the dragons. The dragon's like, well, he's a dragon, therefore he has to come with us. So Celestia tries to broker peace with them, but then Spyro basically thinks, oh, I'm being kept out of loop. Kind of opens mouth, inserts claw, and causes problems. That causes both of them to basically kind of pseudo declare war. It's like, kind of declare war, but not really. Which then leads to Spyro getting attacked by a bunch of mercenaries headed by a griffin, well, griffin and dragons. And they find out that Malefor is still alive. He's actually a lich. And now they have to actually fight Malefor. So they managed to get, so after this, they managed to literally get like, oh, we got the spell. It's like, yeah, about that. We can't really send Spyro home yet. Why? Malefor is still alive? Dear God. Yes, I am God. Get up, pony. You're a cute pony. And Malefor's big plan is just basically take over the Dragonlands, use his lich-like powers, because now he has like lich-like powers. He is a lich. Absorb the ruler of the Dragon Clans, and then basically just kind of sweep to go into Equestria, and inevitably used all the powers to basically breach the dimensional wall, get into Avalar, basically restart what he did in the Reboot trilogy. And basically now they can't basically make Spyro leave, because now Spyro is literally like the only one strong enough to have a chance against Malefor. Cinder offers to come to Equestria, basically to aid Spyro, and also to basically make sure the spell actually works, which does work. Yes, Cinder. There's little shenanigans with Malefor basically brainwashing Discord. Discord basically is like, yeah, I don't like that. And it basically is willing to join Celestial Luna to basically fight Malefor under a pinky promise. It's like, dear God, no. Even Discord knows the power of a pinky promise. Yes. They all head to the Dragonlands, where Malefor is already pretty much taken over. He captures Spyro specifically so that way he can absorb his energy, keep him weak enough that since Spyro is like the only person who can really take him out, it's like, oh, I drained his energy, therefore he's pretty much dead. However, Spyro does survive because of Dark Spyro inside him, basically forcibly keeping him alive. It's like, nah, I still gotta use you. Dark Spyro lets Dark Spyro take over, destroy the Dragon Castle, and basically burn through a lot of Malefor's time and stalling him. And then afterwards, it's basically one big fight between Malefor, Cinder, Celestial, Luna, and Discord. Because Spyro is pretty much out of the game. He just like no energy. Everything he burned through everything, and now he's burned out. However, it's not any of those that stop Malefor. It's Spike. Yeah, you hit me right. Basically, as they were getting to the Dragonlands, Spike was actually following them behind for distance. And he had a bunch of gems to give to Spyro to hopefully give him more energy to fight it. Spike actually didn't want to fight. He was basically just going to be support. It's like, I have all these gems. Here, Spyro, take them. However, Spike gets help from what's called the Chronicler, Like I said, I'm not too familiar with this with the Spyro lore, so bear with me. The chronicler asks Spyro's like, "Well, yeah, but you have a meaning. Do you want me to help you uh, get to where you need to go?" He's like, "Yes, I need to help Spyro." Basically, chronicler teleports Spyro literally right in the middle of the fight. Like instead of off to the side, no, like plops him right there, right between everyone. Malachor is like, "Ooh, a snack," and tries to eat him. Time freezes. Spike talks to the chronicler, brings about the fact that Spike is a purple dragon. True, Spike's a purple dragon, and so basically basically overclocks Spike's powers, and basically the chronicler forcibly jumpstarts Spike's purple dragon powers. He unleashes a big old fire that completely basically one-shots Malachor and basically turns him into a skeleton. Malachor's dead, and them's your uncles. And then the story kind of ends with Spike agreeing to be trained in basically Purple Dragon stuff by Spyro and Cinder once they actually able to keep the portal open permanently. So basically, there's actually the possibility of a sequel to the story where once they stabilize the portal magic and they can kind of go and specifically just Spike, Cinder, and Spyro, they can kind of go across both lands by themselves without any reason Spike would be trained. And I know the story kind of seems fractured for my description. It really does, because a lot of stuff because I actually read the story like 3 weeks ago, and I had to actually do a lot of stuff involving finishing up my job. I'm going to be making a video on that. Don't worry. But I had to actually say the plot itself is actually really interesting because it doesn't really drag on too much on the Ponyville side, because once they get Spyro, they basically hide Spyro, and then almost immediately Celestius finds out that the dragon and the griffin basically know that Spyro exists. So it's like, okay, you gotta do that. And basically everything's kept. I guess everything is kept short enough when it comes to the pacing of the overall story. I think, yeah, the story is just over 100,000 words, but it doesn't feel like that. I know, sorry. Sorry that I'm being fragmented. Character-wise... No, wait, I'm not done with the plot. But yeah, the plot... My brain is like... Honestly, my mind is everywhere, so just... This probably won't be like the best review I've done, but trust me when I say I like the story. But when it comes to the overall plot, everything just works. Like, there's no real big fight feel. Like, first it starts off like a traditional, oh, X is stuck in Ponyville, ends up at Fluttershy, because of course, Fluttershy gets it. And then we get she's just hanging out with the other ponies, helps out Applejack at the farm with like a big rock. It's like, oh, I want to use your magic. Spike asks some questions throughout the story. We'll talk about Spike near the end because I gotta bring up that. And then as soon as you think, oh, it's just gonna keep going like a normal sort of thing, we get the whole thing with with the ambassadors, and then the dragon ambassador is actually trying to kill Celestia Luna because of backstory. I'm actually not going to touch upon that because I actually want to keep that part a secret. But it's not. It's only really important to why the dragon ambassador is involved in the whole plot in the first place. So it's only important. You only really find out at the end why she's involved. That's it. And then everything just goes full speed once Malachor shows up with Discord. Discord fights Celestia Luna to weaken them to basically get them strong enough to fully manifest in Equestria, and then and then basically just takes a dark turn with him going to the Dragonlance, taking over the Dragonlance for a little bit, and then fighting Spyro, and then fighting the princesses in Discord and Cinder and all that. But yeah, that's more or less the plot. The characters, they're very basic. Like I don't really have much to say about the characters because these characters. There's not really a lot of character development. I think there is some with Spyro and I guess Twilight, kind of, sort of. But this is mainly just Spyro. But most of these characters basically act the way you think they behave. I guess you can talk about Spyro. Spyro is very anxious. He's he wants to go on an adventure. Like there's a part where once they find out about the ambassadors coming, he wants to talk to them. He sends a letter to Celestia saying like, "Hey, can I talk to them?" Celestia's like, "No, we need you. You need to stay right here." And instead of doing anything, Spyro heads to Canto to sneak into the castle to try and basically butt in on the talks between Celestia and the two ambassadors. And Celestia's really, really mad about that. And of course, we get like a lot of moments. But outside of Spyro, there's just not a lot of character development, which makes sense. This one follows more of like the whole, instead of focusing on the characters, it focuses more on the plot than anything else. And for that type of story, the characters are very, very basic, but they get the job done. There's not too much depth to them. Like they're really stock, but but again, what the author's trying to do is just focus more on developing the story and trying to figure out what to do, and basically just telling just a decent basic enough adventure story. I guess jumped in that way. Well, the characters could have been done better. I'm not gonna drag on the author too much for basically just doing very, very basic rudimentary characters. What you see at the Ponyville set mean six, yet what you see with Spyro and Sparks is what you get. Is that there's just not much depth to them. And there's key moments with characters between the princesses and the three dragons album, which is like Pterodon. What the hell is it? What the? I cannot remember. I cannot remember what the name of the dragons are. Oh, I cannot remember what the name of the dragons are. The three dragons that help Celestial. They're fine. Like even Malachor is serviceable. He's not good. He's not bad, but I wouldn't call him great. He's good. Don't have anything more to say about that. Grammar wise, I think there was one grammar error. I think there was. Yeah, I think there was a single notable grammar error where I think he meant to say Malachor, but accidentally wrote down Spyro. I think I know there was a grammar error somewhere in the story. It's just due to the fact that it's been so long since I read the story, like a couple weeks, that I completely forgot where specifically the error is. I know it's in the second half of the story, somewhere in the second half. But that's it. Pacing wise, this is actually well done. In terms of pacing, it doesn't drag on at any point because everything is kind of set up in sections, like you have here, where it's just Spyro hangs out with the main six. You have here, which is just Spyro trying to get into the embassy and kind of mess up kind of get involved in the ambassador talks, and then here is just everything, just the whole climax, more or less. Again, just like with the characters, it's very basic. There's not really much in the way of it changing, but it's serviceable enough as it is. So I don't really have anything bad. That's actually more or less what I think is the story. Is there's nothing really bad about the story, uh, but I wouldn't put the story like up at the top tier because there's nothing that really gets me like invokes any emotions in me. I guess you could say like everything is just a good, solid, at best above average story, but nothing really is great about it. So yeah, would I recommend the story? Yeah, I mean, I would. It's a good, solid enough story as it is. There's just nothing. There's just nothing that really wows me. There's just it lacks that wow factor, and not every single story has to have that wow factor. I get that, and so you got to look at the story as a whole. And as a whole, it's very serviceable. It's very well. It's very well written. It's very well done. The characters are good but not great. The villain is good but not great. Everything is good but not great. But it gets the job done as well as it can in terms of what the story is trying to tell. Uh, Favorite part? This is actually going to be where I mix it with what would I change, because I think because this honestly has to talk about the whole Spike being a purple dragon and being the one to defeat Malifaux is something I like, but also something I'm completely divided on in the implementation of the whole story. So, for context, my one and only issue with this part is not even the moment itself, because I actually like the moment because the whole setup of Spike just appearing in the middle of the fight, Malifaux trying to basically take an advantage. Everyone else is kind of distracted by the fact that Spike just showed up out of nowhere. Malifaux's like, "Ooh, I can use this guy to recharge my reserves to basically continue fighting." Goes after him. Time freezes. The Chronicler shows up, tells Spike that you're a purple dragon, therefore you need to learn all these abilities. But I'm gonna more or less kickstart him for you. Spike blowing the fire and basically one-shotting Malifaux. In essence, it kind of feels like a Deus Ex Machina, but if I remember right from the original Spyro trilogy, Purple Dragon's kind of whole thing is they are kind of walking Deus Ex Machinas. I can't remember. Like I said, I'm not familiar enough with Spyro lore to have a definitive answer, but I'm pretty sure the whole thing is that they're kind of walking Deus Ex Machinas. So Spike getting one shotting and defeating Malifaux is fine because not only is it kind of a Deus Ex Machina that works, but also you got to take into consideration that one, Malifaux was very weak because not only did he fight a very ancient dragon, but he was also fighting four people at once. It was 4-on-1. He was actually kind of holding off because when he absorbed Spyro, he basically turned himself young, but then he was on a time limit. He fought the dragon, he fought Dark Spyro, which kind of burned through all the energy he used absorbing Spyro, so now he's kind of working on borrowed time already. And he was kind of already weak from the fight. So it does make sense that a big enough blast from fire would actually be able to kill Malifaux. He's a lich. Liches, I think, in most RPGs are like weak against fire. Makes sense. And the fact that, as I said earlier, Spike has a bunch of gems, and the gems actually, and while Spike eats the gems, Spyro is able to actually use the gems to basically absorb and basically behave like the crystals in the Spyro world. And so so you can easily understand that the Chronicler just took the gems and used that to basically force Spike's purple dragon powers to activate, and also overclock them at the same time. So while it does come off as a Deus Ex Machina, the moment you dig any deeper, it stops becoming a Deus Ex Machina because it's just the circumstances behind it. So it actually really, and it also works as like a shocking moment because we weren't expecting Spike to be a factor in the climax. We figured, it's a Spyro story. Spyro Spyro and Cinder teaming up with Celestia and Luna. They take out Malifaux all together. So you weren't expecting Spike to just show up and one shot him. It makes sense. However, what I'm not a fan of this story is Spike's implementation before that, because Spike doesn't really do anything. Like when Spyro shows up, Spike basically just asks him some questions. There's a neat moment where Spike is eating gems, and Spyro's kind of confused, and then a little bit later, Spike offers Spyro a gem to eat, and Spyro's like. Meanwhile, he's looking at Spike, and he's like, "Oh, that's good emerald. How are you doing this?" Well, I don't know. And it's a cute little moment, but it does feel like Spike could have been used more. And I'm not calling, like I said, I'm not calling Spike used in the story bad. I just think that Spike could have been more prominent in this story. Like, oh, you have Spike, because we know that Spike, being a purple dragon, the whole thing is purple dragons are really powerful, and so the Chronicler kind of basically forced Spike to get the purple dragon. So, like, it's fine. It would have, if Spike was more involved in the greater plot, it would have made the moment where Spike takes out Malifaux better. Like, it's already a good enough moment that I don't really want to change it, because it is a genuinely shocking moment. Like, it's a well done swerve moment for the sake of a swerve, because it's like, oh, Spike's the one that takes it out. It's actually really cool. I just think, at the end of the day, maybe just make Spike more involved in the plot. Maybe hang around a couple of chapters of just Spike getting to know Spyro, and then showing us, like, maybe they can even foreshadow the whole purple dragon thing. It's like Spike bringing attention to the fact that he's purple, and he's just trying to use the powers, and he's like, I can't do anything. But I understand why he did it, because it would have taken away from the moment of Spike taking out Malifaux. So I don't. And that's why I'm kind of split on this, because on one hand, it would make it would kind of take away, but at the same time, it might enhance it. It just depends on what the author would do. So I'm not going to criticize the author too much on this one moment, because it's just a minor moment in the scheme of things. So, but yeah, that is, I guess you could say, this this Spyro My Little Pony crossover, Little Dragon in a Strange New World by the Suijin. I can't. I'm sorry. My mind, me playing Yu-Gi-Oh, just turned that into Suijin, so I'm just gonna call it Suijin. Oh, I wish the author would actually tell me how to pronounce the name. Yeah. So that is Little Dragon in a Strange New World. I like the story. I think the story was good. Just nothing really stood out except for maybe the whole Spike thing. But even then, that's minor blip. And yeah, those have been Dark Symphony 777, and cut.